like
5:02?
Yeah, I call the meeting order at 5:02. And I'd like to start by saying that, providing some news that some of you may know this, some of you may not, depending on how the correspondence was sent. But Claudio has resigned from the commission effective yesterday.
Oh.
He said that his work as a consultant has involved much more travel lately, and he just didn't have the time to devote to it. So.
Oh. Thank you for that update.
And in that regard, I don't know, excuse me for not being really up on Robert's Rules of Orders, but I would like to seat Evan as a voting member for this meeting.
That's fine.
Okay. And I would like to ask for a motion to approve the minutes of our April meeting.
So moved.
Andrea, a second?
Second.
Okay.
I have some discussion.
Okay.
I was just curious because it was also on the WebEx, on the phone. If you were going to amend it?
We can do that, yes. I have
And then, I don't know if you wanted to mention that Suzanne was on the phone.
Yes.
And I didn't know if you wanted to also mention, if you're putting her as a guest, if John Noyes was there as a guest or whatever. He spoke for a few minutes.
I think, definitely we will amend that. We should have that on there.
Okay.
And we should have had Suzanne as a guest. But I think John was just in the audience, so we'll leave it at
Well,
that.
he did speak on the noise thing. So I don't know, whatever you want to do, but I just noted those two things.
Just in time, Madam Secretary, we're talking about the minutes. And I noticed one typo too, Suzanne, under 7 open space updates, where we talked about D, noise tract. It was TRACT in the headline, but TRACK.
Okay, all right, so typo, correct the typo?
Yep,
Okay.
just a minor point. So with those corrections,
You have to vote again with the amendment.
We didn't vote yet.
We didn't vote.
I make a motion to approve. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes as discussed?
As revised, yes.
Second.
As revised? And second. All in favor?
Aye.
Negative? Abstained? So 7-0-0, Suzanne.
Unanimous.
Public comment. Does anybody from the public wish to comment? Terry? Suzanne?
Well, I'm actually going to be asking about Hiker Happy Hour.
You're welcome to come up, Suzanne.
Yeah, do you have a count of how many people were there? Nobody does.
No, off the top of my head, I'd say in the range of 20 to 25.
Oh, you thought there were that many?
Yeah.
I thought
There
it
were,
sounded like
what do you think,
14.
15?
There were probably 15 actually on the hike, but there were
That's
more
what I
people.
counted.
There were people there when we arrived.
Yeah.
Right,
At
well,
the end.
15 on the hike is what I'm
I
figuring,
would
right?
say 4 or 5 more, so 20, 21.
Yeah, and I don't think everything. Anyway, my concern is we're now paying money to do this, and it looks to me that we're doing the same people all the time, and it's this group and this group and the open space group and a few extra people thrown in. And so I'm going to be suggesting, I've already talked to Sabine, that that from our perspective, we take attendance and ask people to just sign in as if they're coming on the hike and see whether this is really producing any new membership for us, or if it's just us entertaining ourselves kind of thing.
Well, it would give you some names to solicit for membership.
Exactly. I mean, but if there's anybody that's new there, so we're going to be we're going to absolutely finish it off this year, but we'll be looking at whether it's worth $200, a year.
Another thought is because it was such a delayed opening.
Pardon me?
Such a delayed opening for this first one. I think the next one we have more time and to get more publicity out on it. The other thing is, if you're going to do a clipboard for attendance, I think that's a good idea. Maybe put a clipboard for volunteers.
Well, we could. We could just figure who's coming, because when I look around, I see a lot of board members and spouses and, or former board members, and I'm not sure that the trust should be paying. I mean, that's not really our role.
Can I just say, like, this is this year you're talking about, or you're basing this on all previous years?
Well, we never paid before.
Oh, I see.
I think we did at the end of last year.
Last year,
Yeah.
a little bit at the end. I don't think all of it. You paid out of your own pocket.
I paid out of my own pocket once, but that was because I changed the date.
Okay.
They wanted 2 sets of hors d'oeuvres, the ones for the other people there and the ones for us, and I said that wouldn't work, so.
And
Let me ask if I
Edmund
may.
and I met with Chris last week,
Yeah.
and we said if we offered to pay, because at that time, I think she was bartending, it was just, because staffing was an issue, but now they've got new people running it and things like that.
No,
But
you know.
I think it's a good observation.
I would disagree, just because of my experience last year, and I didn't go to every one last year, but the ones that I did go to, I felt there were definitely new people there.
There may be, I'm just saying.
I think when it gets warmer too.
Yeah.
So, I'm just saying.
I would throw out 2 questions. Number one is the $100 is essentially for the snacks, and
Right.
if we were to skip those, would that deter anybody from coming? And would the old linemen still be willing to do it if they didn't get that little bit of revenue with the
Or could people buy their...
liquor sales and whatever?
Yeah.
Well, that would be,
Yeah.
Well, I thought frankly, I thought the hors d'oeuvres this time, this first one, were a whole lot better than they were at the end of last year.
And they
I
could always...
wasn't there, I've had Zoom.
Yeah.
So I
would agree with you. The addition to the cheese and crackers, more variety of cheese, was like a chicken salad.
Yeah.
And a pretty prosciutto roll.
Ham and prosciutto and salami, and, it was a pretty good plate.
The other thing they could have done was not lower the prices, for a drink.
Yeah.
It's not really a happy hour if you don't.
Well, they didn't they? They set the price.
They did set the price, $5 for beer, $7 for wine.
But it's a lot higher if you go any other time.
Right.
Yeah.
We went at 5 o'clock on Saturday so I could retrieve I'm not even going there. And it was $22 for 2 drinks of wine, so.
Plus
It's
your
Saturday.
line,
We're
yeah.
not going to have a happy hour on Saturday.
Well, whatever, we're gonna be looking at it. It's just it,
Okay.
and that's our decision whether we continue or not with you.
No, I think
So,
it's good to keep
but-
having this continual feedback.
Because I just think if there's no point, the board is gonna, why we're paying.
It's fair. I mean,
Okay.
it's certainly your prerogative to do that. I would just ask that you keep Angie in the loop of what's going on, because she's kind of our...
Yeah, no,
at the end, so.
and then our the one we're doing in June is going to be at Hatchet Hill.
Mm-hmm.
So, it will take us a little longer to get there if we start at 4:15, so we'll see. I mean, probably won't arrive back at the inn until 5:15, 5:20, but I'll let them know.
Other people do get there at 5-ish.
Get the hype.
Yeah.
The non-hikers.
Yeah, like 2 of them are my friends.
People have a conflict, that they don't want that.
And apropos to that, Chris B. did put together this
Oh, he was talking about that.
flyer.
Oh, right.
And this, you could QR code directly to the Old Lyman. I believe that's what it is. And then we could put this like on the morning of the hike, put it in a plastic thing and put it on the trailhead.
I think it would be great to, put some up on the bulletin board here, in the library or other places around town.
Yeah.
Maybe you all could get a list of who's putting where, 'cause we used to do it at the library. So I think this first one, because the communication with the inn was so sporadic.
It was difficult. It's still difficult in that I called and asked them to get back to me about something, and 4 days later, they hadn't.
Well, Chris just took over that job. He just bought a house and moved from Willimantic, so he was fencing in for the dog. So I think he was a little, short of time, and he didn't understand it. But I think now he's in from what I've.
He's delightful. I mean, I never met him, but.
Well, we'll see what, you know.
Yeah.
But I was curious about the signs because
Well, that was one of the problems. I was the only one that put a sign up.
they have ours, but,
Yeah, I saw them because I was in there talking to Tosh on Saturday. They do have them.
but they couldn't find to take a hike. So that's why, did they find that? They said,
She had this long one rolled up and it said, "Oh, I'm open space."
yeah, right, they had that one, but they were looking for the, because I said, we always put out 3.
I know.
We had that. I wasn't sure if maybe you guys, they thought you picked it
No,
up.
never
So,
taken that, ever.
I know, okay, I just was checking on its
Yeah.
status. Because that's a sign that.
Been gone a while. But what happened was I forgot to take it home Wednesday night. I went down at 7:45 on Thursday in the morning because I had a vet appointment, and it was gone. And I wanted to get ours back, and I had to go down and order it and wait till I ran into somebody to say, "Hey, can I have my sign?" Because they don't want you calling over and over.
I know.
So, anyway, well, we're going to be looking at
Well,
it
if we
from
can.
where we are. We'll go through them this time, but I will have a clipboard.
Well, I think a sign-in is a perfectly legitimate for a
Ask for name and phone number.
local nonprofit.
Yeah.
Why, it's an opportunity, as far as I can see.
People might welcome it.
And maybe have a little extra space, say yes or no on, would you like to volunteer?
We have the sign-up sheets that we use for midsummer with a clipboard. So maybe the same thing, would you like to volunteer? And we could put Old Line Land Trust / open
Open
space.
space.
You know, so it equals, you know.
Yep.
So I think, you know.
Let us know what you decide.
Okay, and the next thing is my role here. I'm abandoning it. Well, I feel like it's not working the way it's supposed to be working because I think everybody kind of knows everybody. And so if they have a question, they're going directly to the person they want info from. They forget to CC me on stuff. And I sit here and half the time I don't know what they've been doing the other way. So what I'd like to say is if you have something that specifically is going to pertain to open space, if you keep sending me the agenda, then I can come when it looks appropriate. But for me to just sit here and...
I apologize that there was a lot of
There's been a lot...
emails
but-
flying back and
but
forth between
people are neighbors or
between Mary
they're friends
and
or
you.
whatever, yeah.
Oh,
And it's
yeah.
just... And the board keeps saying it should go through me and nobody seems to remember. So it's just not worth it. So...
Maybe they'll miss you when you're gone.
Well, I have to go off the board in March anyways, because you only can do 2 terms. But like I said, if there's anything if you send me the agenda, if there's anything that pertains to the trust, then I'll come.
That's fine, and you can always call in too.
I can always call in too, yeah. I'm getting lazy with this knee, but yeah. Okay, so that said, I want to hear Ames, so I'll stay till Ames and then I'll go. But I will let Amanda know, well, we're just going to see how it goes.
Well, Andrea's taking it over.
Andrea.
I mean Andrea, yeah, sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea, for taking it over.
Any other public comments?
Yeah.
I have a few questions, actually. Sure. Terry Lewis, Harbor Management Commission. I just came from Button Ball, and one of my questions to start was I understand that you flagged the trail.
A proposal for a trail.
Proposal, yeah. I was hoping that we were going to be invited to that. You had said that we were going to take part of making sure that we collaborate together with that, and we didn't get the memo that you were doing
Well,
that.
it's just a matter of stepping through it. I just wanted to go through. First, Mike and I marked it together, and then we invited people from the commission to go and see if an open space.
Mm-hmm.
And the next step was to invite Harbor Management.
Which I did last night.
Oh, so you were going to mark it out where you wanted it to be, and then we were just going to go look at it?
It's marked.
Yeah,
Well-
oh yeah, I've been there.
Yeah, I mean, part of the meeting today is going to discuss what we saw,
Yeah,
the people who went last Tuesday.
okay.
First, start to see if we have agreement within our commission before opening up to you guys. And so nothing's been set in stone, and yeah.
Okay.
It's the intention to invite you guys to look at that once we have a firmer idea of what we think would be good.
Okay, well, my interpretation when we last spoke that we were all just going to the start was going to be collaboratively, and then as
It's a fair question, Terry, and I would ask Fred and Mike to really keep in touch with you guys and work cooperatively with you guys.
yeah. Thank you.
I mean, nothing's been set in stone, so there's still...
Yeah, no,
more to
that's
come.
fine. No,
Different
yeah.
ways it's going to count, I guess. I don't know if you want
Yeah, no, it's just, we were going to try to start from the very beginning of, collaboratively working together and getting the process going. I did get the sign last night. Mike was nice enough to come to the meeting
You
and,
actually saw it before we did.
okay.
I have copies here.
Well, you
none of
can
us have
discuss
seen
that
it.
later, but I think it's a go. We're going to probably eliminate, the dock area and just make it very clean, Horseneck Creek Landing. And we're going to come up with some preliminary and send it to you, and then we can tweak it from there. And so you guys can take a look at that. My other question was,
I asked a question about the sign,
Mhm.
and maybe it will come up in our conversation. I guess once the design or the title has been determined, then together we'll identify a sign maker.
that was
We have some comments, we have some relationships with people.
well, that was
That's the question they asked me last night.
Yeah, one of the questions was we would love to just go directly to the same person that you guys have been using, because I think it would just, everything would blend and it would be a lot easier and it would look the same,
I think
pretty
we'd like
much.
to have some consistency between
I agree.
the signs that are on the upland, would be consistent with what the Open Space Commission has done on other open space properties.
Yeah, we literally just took, he brought an actual colored picture, and we went around and took pictures of all of your signs. And so we were all in the same, he happened to bring the same thing that we decided that we were going to copy. So we do like that, and I think it would be great to see it consistent everywhere. And then obviously there's a consistent sign that we have, which would be, something that would be placed near the dock when the dock becomes available, or, on top of one of the signs coming in, and just making sure that, it's nothing, we're not going to maybe do the huge one at the street. We're going to do maybe a smaller rendition at the street, and then another one maybe smaller where the pit, to make sure that nobody goes down to the pit. And then when you get to the parking area, there would be the bigger signs with like a kiosk of, information or something to go with it. So pretty much everything that you have is what we're going to copy, because I think it would just look better.
Just as an FYI, Terry, we will be buying some signs. We have funds this year that I'd like to utilize this fiscal year, and one of the next agenda items is recognize Mr. New's family's contribution of open space to the town, which would require a new sign for us. So we'll be getting some new signs.
Oh, that's good.
So we're happy to basically put it all together in one order.
So pretty much we're thinking everything that's on here, less this part. We were just thinking less is more. Just a cleaner look. Horseneck Creek Landing. We don't need to mention the dock or the natural area. Just the Horseneck Creek Landing would be a little bit larger, a larger font, and then keeping this the same and making sure that we have this on the bottom, which is important. We all agreed to that. So we were all actually on the same page. The only thing that we don't know is we don't know who does your signs. We have certain people that do our signs, but
Who does your signs?
computer signs in Old Saybrook. So we could, I'm sorry, stealing yours. The other thing, when I went down to go look at the trail, I noticed that there was an extensive amount of dirt being brought down to Amanda's property through the town property. There's I wouldn't say I would say like there's six-wheel dually trucks and dump trucks and a skid steer or some sort of tractor that is creating a berm in between the property and next door. Is that something that was discussed that I thought we were not allowing trucks to go down and things.
The driveway, but I mean, if it's, Amanda's got a right of way, and
No, it's through the town property out to the,
we had a discussion on the sidewalk about getting, that Amanda was putting a berm in, and we thought that was a perfectly reasonable thing to do between public land and private land.
yeah. Well, I would
There's no other
just make mention that, you know, obviously going down through town property, I'd asked Tim and Martha, and they knew nothing about it. And maybe letting people know what was going on, and I would highly advise it's against wetland and really close to the coastal jurisdiction line that, you know, silt fencing and so forth should have been put up when you're doing something like that, so that we're all on the same page and everybody make sure we follow rules. The rules are there for a reason. So that's about it.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, thank you for expressing your thoughts and for coming, Terry. Appreciate it.
Where are your harbor management signs that you have, just so that we could compare our signs to your signs?
Right now, we just did a complete redo down at Pilgrim's Landing. I don't know if you've been down there lately. Nope. So we had new kayak racks put in. We had problem with erosion going down into the river, and so they put in a barrier to block and level out the driveway so that the water and all of the dirt doesn't rush down into the river. So they put a new barrier, and then we had a bunch of triaxles brought in of all fresh gravel. And then we had the signs pulled down that were there, and a couple of signs still left there now. There's some temporary signs and the kayak racks, and all of those, one of them just came back, it looks great. And then the rest of them right now are being built. We have a new, like a kiosk sign that you guys also have, which is educational, has like a little roof, little Swedish shingles on the top.
That's also Pilgrim's Landing, I think.
And that's being built on Pilgrim's Landing. So we're wrapping up Pilgrim's Landing as we speak, and we're going to be working on each access point as we go. Button Ball is next. So right now we're getting the signs organized for Button Ball, and we're getting the permitting going on the dock and so forth. So we have, we're going to try to stick to like start, finish each project as we go along. So it's been a task.
Can I ask you a quick question, Terry? Did you identify who those kayaks belong to?
Yeah. No one came forward?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
What are you
And
gonna do?
and now we have a new dinghy there that's registered, so we have the harbor master trying to figure out who has the dinghy.
What are you
now.
gonna do with the car?
Well, we put signs. We've had Tim put out letters. I've put out people at Bolt Lines. It's unfortunate that somebody decided that $25 for a kayak rack that should be free. And the next day after we put a brand new kayak rack up, somebody went down there and kicked it down and damaged it. So we had to put it back up, which is disturbing. I know, but we put stickers on each one of them. They've been on for a month, and no one has claimed them yet. 3 of them were there over the winter, and we tried to find out who they were, and we figured maybe they were like some summer people. And so now we're giving them time, but 3 showed up in the spring, and they locked them up. So we put a notice saying by May 15th, if you've not cleaned your stuff, we're going to be cutting them and bringing them to the town garage.
I had a practical reason for asking. We had an RFP posted on the homepage, and there's room for 4 news articles. And Katie says, well, if there's a news article, you might be bumped off the homepage. So I'm thinking, maybe they got their kayaks, or after Monday, the town meeting will be held. And, so we'll stay up on the
Yeah, so we're going to try hard to, and it's the first year for doing registration for permits for kayaks. So we're just, we're trying to ease into not causing too many waves, but,
Okay.
unintended.
Wave kayak.
Okay, well, let's move along. The
I
next,
have a quick question.
Okay.
When are you planning on putting any signs up on Town Landing? That's one of your oldest landings, it's not one.
So there is just a town landing sign. So to go back, in
But
all.
that's a street sign. It's not a kiosk or your other signs that identify it.
So in all fairness, going back through all of the meeting minutes for that landing specifically, in the past, it has been mentioned multiple times that we are trying to keep that a very quiet landing, so to speak, because of the state ramp. I'm just telling you what was in the meeting minutes prior to me. That because so many people go down there with a boat ramp, that they were hesitant on having so many people go down and try to launch. There were some times where they're trying to launch jet skis through there, and it was turning into, I guess, a mess. And so it was brought to my attention, because I've asked the same thing multiple times prior to me being on the commission, and I was just an alternate, and then being on the commission for the past 7 years, I've asked about at least just cleaning it up and putting signs on there. At one
Very title.
Yeah, and there was a time where they wanted to put a bunch of kayak racks down there. I'm all about keeping things as much as possible in certain areas in the most natural state as possible, and to be able to put neon orange and neon green and purple and all these like crazy colors and the natural, I mean, I have pictures of my great-grandfather down there, and it's just in such a natural state, and there's certain places that I firmly believe that should be very, very natural. Buttonwall should be very, very natural. I'm all about it being very, very natural. I don't want kayak racks down there. So it's not really just my preference. It's what the town wants at the same time. So that hustle down there was at one point going to be completely stripped, and they were going to put like 10 racks on either side, and I just thought, boy, this is going to turn into a definite problem down there. It's hard enough to try to keep kayak racks secure and so forth, and it's really not an easy place to get in the kayak down there.
Well, actually, we kayak there a lot, and I think you'd want to be like open space consistent with your signs and your markings.
You know what, Amanda, we have heard that, and I agree, and I am working on it.
If I could, we have a busy agenda. We're kind of veering out of open space business, so if we could move on. The next item on the agenda is the creation of a noise family open space. At our last meeting, Fred made a motion and we approved the establishment of a basic new open space that would physically abut that of Ames, but legally and in terms of scriptures and so forth would be distinct, and it would recognize the Noyes family's bargain sale of the property. We had asked John for his thoughts on what it should be named, and he came back and said Noyes Family Open Space. Do you want to mention anything about that, John, or?
No, there's nothing profound about it. It's just been in the family for many generations and jointly owned at various times by various noises.
Okay, so I would like to ask for a motion to basically to amplify what we had earlier agreed to, in fact, name this new open space the Noyes Family Open Space. Would anybody so move? Ann? Second it. Any discussion? Shall we take a vote? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? So 7-0-0, Suzanne. So John, we'll be in touch with you. I'll be in touch with you, and we could talk about what's the appropriate language for both the sign and to put on the town website. I know you had sent me some initial memo on that we can work from. Okay.
And also, if we're going to put a sign on it, where what would be the most appropriate place to
Correct,
put a
yeah.
sign, because it
Yeah.
does have road frontage on Boggy Hole Road, on
It does.
Boggy Hole. And I thought, when we were at Hikers Happy Hour the other day, I was driving by and thinking, it'd probably be nice to have a sign
I think on Boggy Hole.
on Boggy Hole.
Yeah. Just the sign.
Yeah,
I don't think,
no, just
I don't know
acknowledgement
what
that-
sign you were thinking. Are you thinking along the same size as we have for McCulloch and Ames?
Yes, yes. Yeah, I think, it should be standardized.
And we probably need, we can, maybe you would join us to mark out the boundaries along Boggy Hole, the corners of the property that on the abutment of Boggy Hole, so we're not putting a sign on the wrong place.
Well, I'm happy to, although I confess, I've never waded through Boggy Hole to get onto the bus.
No.
Frontage on the road.
It would simply be an acknowledgement of that the town owns it. This is town land, and it's the Noyes family open space.
Probably we need to identify the back ends of the other trail parcels.
Yeah,
There's markers there, anything to the left of it as you're facing.
right.
Dumpster.
Yeah.
Okay, well, moving on to the next item, there's a town meeting Monday evening.
Thank you again, John.
Thanks, John. The town meeting Monday evening, and one of the agenda items is for the town to accept 1.8 acres of property at 2139 Buttonball Road, which Amanda and Evan discussed with planning. I guess you guys walked the property and so forth. Tim asked if open space, pardon?
We also did the wetlands walk.
And Tim asked if we would make a presentation. I'm going to be out of state that day, so I asked Michael if he will do that. This is a copy of his presentation. Eric Knapp put together this PowerPoint, which has a description of the property, and it shows a couple maps of the property. And pursuant to that, in talking to Eric said that there is not a requirement that open space vote and approve this acceptance, but it would be probably beneficial to the process if we did so. So I would like to bring before us a vote to accept this property among open space, and we can let them know that this will be added to our inventory.
I'll move that we accept the open space.
Do we hear a second? A second?
A second.
Any discussion?
I must say, these small parcels of town-owned land in the midst of a subdivision are, in my opinion, somewhat problematic, but they are important. And if we're to support the state law and local planning regulations, I think it's important that we do accept it.
Okay.
I also think that it would be nice if, in the planning stages, because the planning department is well aware of pieces that are being sold, the land use department, and coming up, like we've done in the past, is to have a workshop so that we can work also with the developer to make suggestions on where there's already adjacent or nearby open space wildlife corridors, and why it's important that we connect them, and also that we get 15% of usable versus a piece of ledge and wetland that's already protected and non-buildable.
Yeah. Well, that was the guideline that we operated under when Diana Atwood Johnson was chairman. She was able.
Always operated.
Yeah.
I would tend to disagree with that. I think if there's unusual natural resources on the site that need to be protected, that should happen. And because what it does is they're going to subtract that from the buildable area anyhow, theoretically, but you never know who gets on the wetland commission in any town, and you can apply for a permit to fill all of that wetland, and they can issue it and do it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Unless there's a conservation easement or something protecting that resource. So I wouldn't say, unless you know, it's a park or something that you could actually put up. In the towns that I've been familiar with, a lot of times these smaller parcels go to the local land trust. Mm-hmm. The town of Greenwich doesn't accept such small parcels. They have kind of I would call it cluster zones, subdivisions for condos and things, where 50% of the parcel is set aside as open space. Those have become municipal open space areas just because they're significantly larger than these smaller things.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, I agree with Amanda that we should be seeing this because there's another, actually Denise is going to wetland sidewalk
as we speak.
As we speak. Otherwise, I would have been there. How does that relate to the open space that's on that subdivision on this same road? I think it's further
And there's
south.
a third parcel, Jason, that's for sale. So that's why it'd be important to have a workshop and to try and establish pieces that we could work. And if we were able to connect, or if we needed to potentially buy a piece so we could connect, we could be in the process instead of being at the end of the process.
Let me just interject to make a comment here. I met with Harold Thompson this morning, and I thought we had a very productive conversation. I said that we would love to work cooperatively with him and to express our views on if there's going to be open space set aside, what would be appropriate open space. I mentioned protecting vernal pools and so forth. From his perspective, it is the planning's prerogative what land will be set aside, period. And their definition of open space is not our definition of open space. Their definition of open space includes active recreation, playgrounds, whatever. They could conceivably set aside open space for a ball field. But he said, we've never done that because we've tried to work with open space on this. Pardon?
Does that meet the state obligation?
It does. It's called, it's land set aside for parks and recreation, actually, it says, if you read the statute. But I would agree. I think just as we're working with the Harbor Management Commission and getting to know the folks that are active in doing things there, whenever it involves open space or access to water, we should be working on improving our relationships with each of those commissions, maybe even zoning.
So Harold said that he would make an attempt to keep us in the loop, to listen to what we have to say. I went over, for example, let's pass that around. This is another property that's under discussion. There has not been an application submitted yet for 11 Button Ball. It's roughly 3.8 acres, which we set aside for open space at the intersection of Button Ball and Shore Road.
So what includes...
That's very isolated.
Pardon?
Yeah, well, as is the other Button Ball piece of property.
So we also had a draft deed that was I don't know who drafted it, which relates to 2139 Button Ball. And I went over that with Harold, and I said, there's a lot of clauses in there that causes problems. And he basically agreed with our objections. For example, it says on there, no sign may be erected on the property. Well, if we want to put up a sign saying this is town open space, that would technically prohibit us. And he says, yeah, that's not right. So I told him that we would like to have two things in future deeds, which he said he would work with us on. Number one, identify that the land is being provided to the town for open space by our definition, and given that it will be protected for passive recreation and preserve nature and wildlife. And we don't need the additional clauses in there saying there won't be dumping, there won't be buildings put
We've
up.
never had one, an open space have any restrictions, but I know the attorney that's involved in the owner of the lot, and that's what he puts on his standard subdivision.
Yeah, well, we thought it might be standard. Harold hadn't seen it, and he couldn't figure out where that language came from either.
I know that.
Yeah, and then the other thing I would mention, and I'll let you talk, Andrea, is we talked about, I know that it's been suggested in the past that open space gets, quote, usable land. Well, I guess and I've talked to you about that, what would a definition of usable land be? When you're talking basically less than 2 acres, for example, for all practical purposes, we're not going to put hiking trails in there. We're not going to have parking areas. If we can preserve, as Mike said, an interesting ledge or wetlands, which are of value to nature, I don't have a problem with that personally.
I think you need to take a whole approach to it, but to the other...
And the last thing I would say is based on the map that Andrew's looking by, 15% is set aside as open space. If we say that's not usable land, it's 2 at the Hicon, we want another 15%. Essentially, you're taking 30% from the developer then rather than the 15%. And that's frankly something that planning is not going to do. So.
Well, seeing how they didn't give us anything for the last 3 subdivisions, I wouldn't expect them to.
Yeah.
However, on the parcel that we just accepted the open space, on this piece...
We haven't voted yet.
I know, well, and then the parcel that's up for sale with several vernal pools on it, that's surrounded by a common owner, the Black Hall Country Club, who we've worked with before, and is interested in maybe working with us to preserve bigger chunks of open space. So I think that's why a workshop is very nice, because you can have a conversation before the developer has put in writing and created all of these subdivision plans without giving any consideration. It's the soil scientist or the engineer, the civil engineer, who says, well, we can't build here. Well, that can be open space. I just think the thinking,
And the way we may approach that is, in larger towns, there are professional staff that have those discussions. Here you've got a staff member that's probably overwhelmed with 3 commissions and may or may not have the expertise or feel that he's, has the authority to do that, because our commissions seem to be in control of what happens. And I can understand that because, we're just a smaller town. But for something as large as, a 13-lot subdivision, it might be good to have, just as a standard practice, a workshop between the appropriate commissions I know the Wetland Agency has the ability to hire a professional to help them analyze the wetland quality and stuff. They actually have the ability to charge the applicant to get the money to do that. Mm-hmm. I don't know if zoning has that ability, because we don't have a town planner, or we don't have...
Well, so how would you go about making that a standard operating procedure for a workshop like that?
By working with the chairs of the various commissions and having them gain confidence in our leadership and our responsibilities, the way we deal with the public and stuff, so that we aren't having...
Well, Evan can tell you in the past, we've had workshops. Mm-hmm. We've had developers come and do presentations before us. We gave comments before it went to the public hearing, and that has gone away.
And that might just be change in personality. You need to re-educate folks and say, gee, this is very valuable. Because you probably have new chairman of the commissions. You have new staff. Well, since I've been here 3 years, we have 2, land use folks that I had to deal with.
Right, but you've had planning and you've had the same staff there. I think, there's the survey that was done by the town, and it's overwhelming that people wanted open space. They wanted trails. They wanted connectivity. And it just seems we're here doing what the citizens of Lyme want, but it doesn't convey to the rest of the land.
Yeah, we just have to talk to folks, and probably you'd start with the selectmen and convince the selectmen that it's a good idea and that they see our working relationship with the Harbor Management Commission is going to be successful and have a successful
I think
project.
you should do any.
I would just say it's a process, Amanda.
It is.
I think that for whatever reason, we got a little bit on the wrong side of planning, so I'm trying to rebuild a relationship with them, which is why I reached out to Harold. And I think I'm also trying to build a relationship with the Board of Selectmen, and I think that's going well.
I think you're doing a great job.
Well, Tim wanted to give us visibility, which is why he asked us to do that. So we're working.
I think that's
towards
great.
Just as a point of interest, I was on the Wetlands Commission for close to 41 years, and at various times we had a soil scientist on retainer. Our last one was, and maybe you remember Penny Sharp, Mike.
I do.
Before she died, she was on retainer, and she did work for us.
Cost, like, for a year's retainership?
That was not very much.
But you can bill the developer when they come in,
Yeah.
because it's a requirement, so it's not really out of their.
For wetlands.
Yeah, just for wetlands, yeah. So, we could call her to say, can you verify that this is or is not a vernal pool?
Right.
And whether and just to check on
Yeah.
the
That's nice.
accuracy of whatever, however the engineers or outlined the wetlands. We just wanted to make sure that it was done properly and that the wetlands were well protected.
I think that's the next step, because apparently I don't understand the wetland review process. I went in to see a file and see what was there, and I barely got a copy of that plan because they don't have an application, which surprised me. But no, I'm not going to criticize anybody. They have their procedures, and that's what's comfortable for them. But I think just like it's going to be important for us to build a relationship with the Wetland Commission. I got off to a rough start with the chair, but we have resource people that could help do that. For example, I could help them. They asked me to identify whether or not it's a vernal pool. I'm going to be doing it on our open space parcels. I'm a professional wetland scientist. I've done it as a career, and it's not going to cost the town anything. But I need a relationship with the chair to get some confidence in my ability, and that we're here to help them do it. And so I know, for example, that is a vernal pool. Rich Snarsky went out and saw 8. I'm not sure whether, I would assume they're spotted salamander eggs, so they know that already. Mm-hmm. Actually, my wife is out there on the field investigation. She's not a professional wetland scientist, but has done hundreds of subdivision reviews. So I think we're going in the right direction, developing these relationships that will help the town regionally.
Yeah, well, it's
just going to take some
also
time.
going to be a bit of an educational process, frankly, because when I was talking to Eric Knapp quite a bit over the last week, primarily for my other half from Gateway, because we presented regulations before zoning Monday evening, and he's not really familiar with what open space's role would be in the process. He says, I looked through the subdivision regulations and you don't mention open space in there, and he kept calling us a committee, and I says, well, we're not a committee. He says, where's open spaces? Well, look at the town. We're established under ordinance, and it says right in there that one of our responsibilities is to advise the land use commissions, and so he's getting a better sense of how we might work with them in partnership and what role we might play. So we're working at it. Andrea.
I'm looking at this. This is a saleable lot. It's yellow, correct?
The outlined yellow spot would be open space that would be deeded to us.
This,
Different, two different.
Those are two different
okay, so
subdivisions.
where, this is the.
That's a different subdivision further up the
Farther
road.
down.
Just as an aside for everybody, including
Gotcha.
Carrie, I told Mike and Fred, start calling it Horseneck Creek because there's 3 button ball properties being jumped.
Gotcha, all right, so that was my question. I was
Horseneck
trying to
Creek
reconcile
land.
the two, but they're separate, they're not the same.
Yeah, this is a new one. The one with the purple, that's a go. That'll be formalized Monday. This is still under discussion. There actually hasn't even been an application submitted yet.
Okay.
It's time for a workshop.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
workshop.
Thank you.
But getting back to Evan's original point, I mean, some of these small properties may have things worth preserving, and they may not. And also, there's an option for developers to provide money instead of property. Is
But that's also-
Is that an option we have to say, look, this piece of land that you want to give us is really not worthwhile keeping? We prefer to have.
That was an argument.
So that we could put that towards a, more
We
substantial
did
piece of
that
property.
on the property on 156, right by the
highway exit.
entrance exit ramp for 95, and we got shot down.
We were told absolutely not. It's at the discretion of the planning commission, not the open space commission.
So planning commission would have to support that.
They would have to approve it. They have,
It's solely their decision, Fred.
Yeah.
so if they don't want to do it, or they don't want
That's where we have to.
they don't want the developer to pony up the money, they can do that.
Okay. Well, I think maybe we should work with planning and let them know that
Well,
we'd like to help sometimes.
Those workshops that we're going to have with them, we will. And it's not, we have to be careful, we're not going to be criticizing past actions. We're looking forward, because we all make mistakes in our past, and we want to go forward with positive, we can help you, and at least listen to our comments. I mean, they may decide for other reasons that they can't do it there, for zoning reasons or something, and that happens, but
That's
not zoning,
if I may, to Mike's point, there are some elements on these properties that are in need of protection, and I think I don't know whether anybody's seen it, but I sent out an article today that was in the New York Times that was I thought really interesting. And that is what cities are doing all over the world to protect small parcels of biodiversity within cities. As these cities grow and they change and so forth, it's going to be, if we're going to have anything to do with helping allay climate change, even these small parcels are going little pocket parks or wild places, and I think having little areas in subdivisions that are wild, hopefully,
Better than nothing, right?
so many of us grew up in areas where there was a little bit of wild area that you could go and play as a kid, and God bless it. I mean, that was how so many or some of us went into the environmental field.
Well, Evan, Mike, and I are going to go to a conference Friday put on by Rockfall, which is talking about forests and the impact of climate change on them and so forth. And Katie Dykes is going to be the key speaker there. And I'm curious to see if she mentions this topic, Evan, because a major emphasis of Governor Lamont is to basically retree cities. He's set aside a significant amount of money for that. And I noticed when the grant proposals come out from DEEP, urban forestry is an area they're really pushing to. So people are.
I mean, these little parcels are not only significant for the wildlife that's there, but for people.
Mm-hmm.
They're really refuges. I mean, just imagine like Central Park or a lot of the little more satellite parks in New York City. They're extremely valuable. And it actually affects people's well-being, both physical and emotional, to have that space.
Well,
Even though it's-
I thought, my thought, I haven't seen this property, frankly, I know nothing about this property, but I thought it called to mind what Ann is doing on Ferry Landing, and maybe we could just put a little bench in there at the edge of the property, and if we don't have to deal with Phragmites, it might be that puts us well down well along in the curve. So.
Well, there was one, well, we're not talking about that.
Yeah.
So.
Well, anyway, let's get back to.
We can vote on the subdivision,
Yes.
so that I can speak Monday.
Did we make a motion?
Yeah.
Okay.
I made a motion.
So let's vote on the motion to accept the 1.8 acres at 2139 Button Ball. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? 7-0. Thank you. So I will give the floor to Ann. And I did pass out a copy of your report. So
Great,
I'll have that.
yeah, I sent it out, get to you perhaps in time to read, and a lot of you probably already know what it says, because you were there for a while.
We were there.
But, of course, the big excitement was that we did get the plants in the ground, and and I guess maybe my second piece of good news is we have an intern.
Hey.
Thanks to
Yeah. Is it
Fred's
Mr.
contact again. Sorry?
Is it Mr. Frost?
Forrest,
Forrest, yes.
Nick
Did you see
Forrest.
the email?
I did. So that makes me even happier because he's taking initiative.
Yeah.
And-
He stopped by town hall and Katie said, "Do you know this young gentleman? He's looking for information about Ferry Landing."
Right, which, obviously there is some mention of it on our portion of the website, but I think we were talking about signage for Ferry Landing, and I think one small little thing that should be available at, summer and hiker happy hours or whatever, just to sort of put out and so people know it's there and what it is. I think I mentioned in my report we ran into in the neighborhood. He's not an abutter, but he walks his dog down there every day. Got him on camera, and so and he had no clue what was going on there, and I don't think he'd even heard of the Open Space Commission, but he may be a weekender, I'm not sure. Anyway, so getting back to the intern, I'm going to be working with him to define his responsibilities and, get some sort of a plan together for what he can accomplish. But I am hoping that he can meet with other members of the commission on occasion, maybe once a month or something, twice a month, probably once a month, because there's so many of you that have areas of expertise that I don't have. One of the things, also getting back to the idea of grants, future grants, potential, there are natives emerging from the seed bank now, and it'd be great if we could start documenting them. As well as documenting some of the other, wildlife and cataloging that. But could, just walk with him for 20 minutes. It's a small property, as you know, and try to identify some of the native flora.
Does he have Fred's report from?
I will be giving that. I just hired him yesterday afternoon, so he doesn't have anything really, except the job description. Yeah, great, and a T-shirt. We're going to kick him out. He's going to be all set, but he seems very energetic, and he doesn't have a specific botany background, but he has some, he took general. He's a rising junior, so he's not had a whole lot of in-depth naturalist material in his course, in his curriculum yet, but he seems eager to learn.
And he's from Mitchell?
Yes. Okay. And so if I can, try to sort of match you up to a little walk at some point, folks that have expertise, that would be terrific. And I am also you know, it's going to be June before we know it. I'm away the first 2 weeks of June, so if I could have somebody to be his sort of connection while I'm not available, that's also something that I would like to ask, and I'll reach out to each of you individually to describe more what I'm talking about. Not sure how quickly I can onboard him in various senses of that word, but we are going to have to start watering eventually, so if we could maybe divvy that up a little bit, that would be great.
It's gonna rain next week.
Yeah, well, and, you know, I'm counting on it. I don't want, you know, we're not going to be pampering these plants. They have to stick it out, but, you know, if we go through, at the beginning, they need water, so.
How many hours do we have him for a week, or how's this, you haven't even figured that out yet, bro?
Well, yeah, I mean, I tried to really manage expectations on that simply because I don't have the hours to supervise, you know, I said I can maybe do one day's work a week, you know, 2 hours of which might be off-site, you know.
Yeah, but I mean, so
off-site.
give me a feel for how much money do we have, and
We have money to probably employ him for as much as 10 or 15 hours a week, but we don't have me, you know, I don't have my hours to give to supervise that, or even.
But you'll give him instructions, and he can do stuff on his own.
I can, but, you know, at a certain point, it becomes, you know, I have to, like, structure. It's more than just saying, you know, do these 5 things. There's going to be what he comes back with and how that's integrated, and, you know.
Has he got an?
Then I have to review the data that he's put into the database, and how do we want to restructure it, and, you know.
Has he got any kind of an academic advisor at Mitchell?
Well, so Lindsay Rush, is that her last name? Very nice. Said she would love to come down and see the project, and said she would, you know, potentially.
Because I think it would be
contact
important
person.
to have him produce some kind of report at the end of his internship. And
I do too. You know, our last internship experience, that had been my expectation, and it was not what
Forthcoming.
their expectation was, so I didn't get any of that. And so this, I'm hoping, will be different. She's not going to be mentoring him through this internship.
Okay.
He's working for us, and
But the point of the of an internship when you're in college is to look forward to some sort of
presenting.
career, and
Yeah.
and they're saying, well, you know, if you go for a job, what do you have to
Right.
say?
Right.
What do you have to produce? And
So,
that's,
you know, at the very least, maybe I can ask Lindsay if she has like some sample, you know, sort of project templates that previous
that
interns have done.
other interns have done.
Yeah.
But, you know, 15 hours a week times how many weeks?
Could be 12.
12 weeks, so, yeah, I mean,
Well, could
if
be-
you figure out a,
Data collection.
yeah, if you figure out,
Identifying the trees, the species.
So we should come up with some deliverables for him, like these are the things we want.
Yeah,
Right.
right, maybe something.
Well,
for-
I would welcome your thoughts on what those deliverables would
Okay.
be. I'm, you know,
well,
making it up as I go along, folks.
I think something for midsummer would be good.
Well, they definitely will. He definitely will do something for
Okay.
midsummer. I'd like him, actually, I mentioned to Greg, I'd like him to sort of do updates either for Limeline or the Examiner or just our website, but I think, you know, we should build up some enthusiasm around the achievements that we're racking up down there, so. So
The
there's
kiosks
that.
would be good.
And we're gonna put the kiosk in. We're definitely gonna do it and clean up the.
Wayne said he'd do it.
Oh, he did?
Yes, so
Oh,
I have
terrific.
a volunteer, well, we pay him. He's our land steward.
Well, I know, but
And
in the
you
past I've asked and, you know,
Why don't we, in a week or so, give you some ideas for
Find the
deliverables and things that
location
you
and
can
he'll do it.
Yeah.
okay,
And you could organize it.
okay.
and I think once we know his skill level, we'll know what we need to do
Right.
to help him get to the point where he can do, whether it's, you know, birding or, identifying most of the vegetation
Right.
that's
I mean, there's
there.
some great apps that can help with identification.
Yeah, well, he might have those
Merlin.
skills already.
Right,
And we could certainly, if he's not introduced to them already, depending on what, I don't know what his field might be or what his major is, but if he's going into environmental science, we could put together, an event a week that takes him to different habitats or something, or...
Well, the other thing I suggested, and I don't know how kosher this is, but if we do have trail maintenance issues while we're trying to find another steward, whether we could be giving him related experience at another one of our properties.
He doesn't have a liability.
Well, he's not going to be using a chainsaw. He would be...
Clipper.
Yeah, that's it.
Provided he knows what to clip.
Right.
That's the...
Well, or, if we have a work party because we have to move something or what have you, redo a ghost trail or whatever they're called.
I did send an email to Pat Shippey and to Peter Cable, because Peter Cable started this project, and just giving him an update of all the wonderful things that you've done in the native plantings. And Pat said to ask you, have you seen any turtles? Because she said
there's billions of them.
Okay, well, that was her concern. She's going to get down, but maybe some mentoring with those two, because they could give the history, so we could get a little history, and Peter has that background, so they might be interested in doing something.
Yeah, I was actually there yesterday because I went down to finish the project, which I think you started with your frilling.
Oh, right. Oh, good.
Thank
you for doing that.
The hatchet job on the...
It was a hatchet job, yeah. It was a hatchet job.
Turtling.
Is that what you were expecting?
That was what I was expecting, yeah. So what I did was take my little bottle of Roundup and drip it into the frills, and
that's okay.
It's the Grim Reaper of trees.
Exactly. Well, those trees...
There were trees of heaven. They're going to go to heaven. They're going to heaven.
They're bad trees.
They're trees of heaven and they're on their way. But at any rate, that was what the Nature Conservancy has done in other areas.
So to open the canopy up for the good understory.
Yeah, and the plants that we put in need the sunlight, so getting the foliage off the invasives will help. The other thing I just wanted to say is, if this is a multi-year project, and hopefully we can get the groups like the high school kids, if there's going to be still an environmental club to help.
There may not be.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah. Good. But to do some more clearing, and especially in the upland. But if we have to, I don't know, I know what I spent to get a small number of trees, but I was going to give this to Ann. So this is about bare root trees.
Oh, great.
Which are going to be a whole lot less expensive and probably more successful.
Yeah.
And so, I think hauling 1 or 2 gallon pots into the woods and planting them is probably not the way most foresters would say was the right way to do it.
No, we're doing pilot areas.
I know.
We're not reforesting acreage.
But in the
a
long
1
run,
acre upland forest.
in the long run,
Looks great. You did a great job.
we do, and I just wanted to applaud Ann.
That's his phone, not a cricket.
Sorry. I just applaud your efforts and your so far management skills. So, thank you.
Yeah,
Working on it.
Ann has done a great job. I've been working with her on that, and we've been exchanging a lot of emails. And you have some other news on the website today?
Yes, well, we have our RFP up for the Phragmites management contract, and put a short turnaround on it. We want proposals by next week. And I did reach out to the folks that we talked about, and so
See what comes up.
we, we have this sequence of events that has to happen with state
we want to move
procedures.
along as quickly as we can because it may be that the deep permitting to allow spraying may take a couple of months. And then as part of that, we need an NDDB review, and Ann is more familiar with that, but if it can be relatively cursory, or they can ask us to really go into more depth, which would take more time. And we don't want to miss the application.
What's that review? What does that mean?
It's the
Natural diversity database.
there's nothing rare or unusual on the property, basically.
Well, I wouldn't exactly say that.
Yeah, Michael has thoughts.
But I don't think it will interfere with what we need to do, because what we're doing is actually improving the habitat. When we were there just doing the plantings, I saw green heron, which I had never been able to see because of the height of the Phragmites. I mean, I couldn't see the pond.
Right,
And also black crown night.
Yeah, when I was there yesterday, there was one great blue heron and it looks like geese nesting on the island. There was a pair of geese, of Canada geese, and then there were also a flock of grackles.
So I think what we're doing is actually helping the habitat and controlling, and we're going to probably want to at least cut some of the frag at Horseneck Creek Land to improve it.
Okay.
And I'd be usually available at least one day a week.
Oh, great. Wonderful.
Depending on when,
Yeah, I mean, I'll pitch in over the summer, just with the schedule.
Great.
just getting a schedule.
All right. Appreciate it.
All set? Okay. Well, the next, are you still there, Peter? Peter?
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay. Well, we're going to talk about stewardship, and we hope that you'll get back quickly. But we had been looking for someone that might step in for us in your absence, and we just for all of you, Amanda reached out to Ed Adante at Public Works to see if one of the Public Works folks might want to get some overtime on a weekend, and I guess one of them used to work for Wilcox, was it? So
he interviewed after Lisa, our land steward left, Lisa Nicolai, and then he went with Public Works instead.
Yeah.
And then I approached Wilcox because they do our trees, and nobody has called back.
So we kind of struck out looking for a temporary fix. So one of the things we'll look at, Peter, and this is absolutely no reflection on you and shouldn't impact you, it should actually help you, is we might advertise for another steward that would work part-time, depending on how we can work out the insurance thing to make it feasible for the person.
I understand, and the commission needs to do what they need to do, and I'll know better Monday as to what I can and can't do. So I'll communicate that to everybody after I see the PA and get the sutures out.
Well, the overall picture is, number one, is that we had Jim Mildren doing work for us, and he's has some health issues that might limit what he's able to do in the future. And
yeah, right.
And you've talked to Wayne recently. Do you have a sense of if Wayne wants to continue doing McCulloch, or?
He's going to continue doing McCulloch. He offered to do a kiosk for Ann. He's interested in doing some fencing in some spots. So he's more short-term work versus, he's on McCulloch all the time. But he doesn't want to take on any other additional open spaces to walk.
And to be frank with you, one of the things that maybe we've been a little bit remiss on, and I would like to have us get back to is beyond the conservation easements, with property the town owns, is to look at them periodically. I mean, even if it's once a year or a couple times a year. We had an issue that came up on Calkins Road. We're talking about a couple button ball properties. Just look at these properties, see if they're being encroached on, see if there's anything happening that's inappropriate, which is going to be more of a time demand. And you know, we talked about we'll take on the upland maintenance of the new Horseneck Creek landing too. So there'll be more work. So we're still relying on you, Peter, but we hope we can.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, my hope is to come back 100%. I just don't really know the time frame. They told me I'd be walking in 2 weeks, so I'm thinking maybe mid-June. So, but I'll let everybody know.
That would be terrific. We appreciate it, Peter. And again, hope everything moves along well for you and you heal quickly.
Yeah.
Just a thought
thank you
on
for
that.
the
I mean, Peter might be back in June or July. I mean, can we go for a spell without intensive stewardship? I mean,
well, I would like to personally put something on a town website to start advertising right away. Just put together last time we advertised for Stewart, we were really fortunate to find Peter, but boy, I tell you, I think that probably our recommendations are more strict than the National Park Service or Rangers. So we need to basically talk about what we're looking for, and I'm going to talk to the new finance person and see what we can do about the insurance. I mean, we certainly want to be covered, but that's an expense for. Given how many hours somebody works, if somebody's only working a few hours a month, that's a tough nut to swallow.
If they're not doing chainsaws, as you all pointed out, then why couldn't we hire a summer person just to come on and say no mechanical equipment?
That's a possibility.
I mean,
we should look at the whole thing
Yeah.
on a holistic.
Limited to clippers and handsaws.
Yeah, and walking the trails and putting maps in the trail. I mean, that'd be a great job and maybe your intern wants more hours and we could pay him,
Right.
you know, through, I mean, I don't know, but if the hang-up is the liability, but if you're not using a chainsaw, you don't need a liability policy.
Again, I think we have to look at it from a holistic area. I want to be fair to Peter too, that if we're paying Peter X dollars an hour and making him have an insurance policy, and someone else maybe should get a little bit less money if they're not using.
Well,
Sure.
See what the finance.
Yeah, we'll come up with what's fair for everybody.
Okay.
So moving on.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
get better.
Get there quick, Peter.
I'm going to hang up now, but I'll be in touch.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you. So I would toss it to Mike and Andrea. Mike had, I neglect to say I didn't copy it, but Mike had some recommendations for bike use and shadow trails and stuff on Ames.
Yeah,
Shadow trails.
when Andrea and I were out there, we went out for poking around just to look at stuff we came across. We were out there because we had a complaint about the mountain bike impact on sections of the trail. So Andrea and I went out, to be honest with Mr. Johnson, we hadn't linked up with him, and so we thought we would just be able to find it because it was obvious. Well, it wasn't obvious on the 220 acres. We went by it, but fortunately he caught up with us via cell phone, and we found some jumps that have been made. We found some of the shadow trails, which I don't quite understand how they were made and maintained, but like someone's been raking the leaves on our trails, and when you rake the leaves, the bikes tend to follow what looks to be an interesting path, and that's where some of the jumps and things were. So we need to do some things probably pretty quickly about the jumps, and maybe closing off some of the trails. And then Andrea has really been following up. Okay, so can we identify who's doing it? We don't know. most of the people that we've talked to have been very responsible about their trail biking. As a matter of fact, the person who alerted us to the problem is a trail biker, because they know it's really not appropriate, and we've contacted some organized clubs and a local student who's very into, Jason is very into trail, or Justin, who's into trail biking, so I'll turn it over.
Have you been able to talk to the woman who lives in, what's her name? Sorry, Gail?
Claire King?
Claire.
We didn't speak with Claire yet. We spoke with Amy Patterson of the Connecticut Land Conservation Council. I spoke with Dennis Main from the Avalonia
Land Trust.
We spoke with, I spoke with Christina White, the Land Trust, Line Land Trust Director. Gwendolyn Hill is my next person, who is a board member of the Land Trust, Line Land Trust, and Open Space Director of Line. And we just this afternoon, Mike and I spoke with Brett Severson, the Southeast Connecticut Northeast Mountain Bike Southeast Connecticut Mountain Bike Association, NEMBA. So basically, the initial action, I think, will be for anyone interested to come and look at the trails that are in question. But we will plan to rest those trails and put up some signage, at least on the kiosks, some educational reason behind the erosion and non-authorized trails. That they're not authorized. And there's a risk to their use that would jeopardize the access for other people. So to dismantle, put the signs on, put a close or some tape along the trails. And another opportunity is working with Brett of the Southeast Connecticut Mountain Bike Association, who is willing to help lay out and design an appropriate bike trail that could be multi-use and environmentally conscious, and they have training in general trail use and maintenance, and then 16 hours of trail chainsaw training and other requisite training for, as I said, to maintaining a trail so that it's not eroded, because that's their intent, is to increase the access and opportunities like we would like to encourage for mountain bikers in town, as well as the high school club, but not creating the jump, because that's not part of their MO. And he, in the meantime, is willing to put out feelers to people like Brian Greenhoe and other local bikers in this area specific to Lime Line, to kind of spread the word and say, not mentioning the trails to give them attention, but to just identify, spread the word amongst the bikers about how to be responsible bikers. So that's something that we'd like to develop a little bit later, but in the meantime, I think Mike's laid out
so
actions.
We want to hear, your feeling about some of these jumps and things. I tend to maybe anticipate what you think about them, but I had a series of steps which I've shared with Andrea and Greg, but we suspect it might be more very localized, a kid that lives nearby doing it, and not really an organized biker, because that's who told us about it. The more responsible one, an older gentleman, Mr. Johnson. But we need to remove the jumps, I think, quickly and close off those trails. And don't necessarily identify why we're closing the trail. And these are all shadow trails. These aren't the official trails that are on our map or the sign trails. These are these leaf-blown shadow trails. We have no idea who's leaf-blowing or raking. I don't think it's with a leaf blower. I think it's someone
with a rake.
is raking the trails. And apparently it's happening on the land trust properties too, some of them. Now, I've never seen anybody there doing it, but
Other people have seen people,
raking.
and they can identify characteristics, but not who they are.
An older gentleman. Could be me.
I did check on the one older gentleman we thought might be, and he's in cable.
Yeah.
No.
It's not that one. So I just wanted to.
It could be, but once you rake the leaves, the trail, these shadow trails are very obvious, and that's,
An invitation.
An invitation to off the trail biking, okay? So we would close some of these trails off, maybe put trail resting, just some sort, but at the kiosk, be more specific, so that, we're doing these trail management to not only let the trail rest, but there was even some vegetation cutting, of significant vegetation cutting of mountain laurel and tree saplings, and of course they're on, the steeper hills, and one jump that I would love to show you, you would go, what? Someone is jumping off this ledge? I mean, it was more than a 6 to 7 foot trail. I mean, if someone, you could fracture your neck.
After going to the Banff Film Festival, watching mountain bikers mountain biking 15 feet off the ground in swinging bridges between trees and jumping between
It's impressive, the caliber of expertise that some people can have on this.
I mean,
clearly this is not on ours.
Obviously not going on ours, but I mean, if that's what people are aiming for, to become.
We don't know, and they're not necessarily in your sensitive environmental areas, but they could certainly get hurt, and if they're doing it by themselves, I mean, someone's not going to know that you're injured out there.
Right.
And it would be difficult to get to them with emergency personnel. I mean, because these aren't easy places to get to. You're not going to drive a little ATV out there and to pick someone up.
Well, the other thing that and I don't mean to harp on this, but I mean, let's think about the effect of those shadow trails on wildlife habitat. That essentially those trails are fragmenting the habitat, and I think that's something that we should discourage.
Well, I don't think there's any dispute, just to summarize a little, about closing off the shadow trails or the mountain bike trails and dismantling the rocks, the jumps at this juncture.
Yeah. It's just, how do we want to go about it?
Yeah. So have you considered just posting a sign saying, please stop doing this, essentially?
I would say no bike.
Because maybe
because if there is an accident, they're going to say, well, you said you can ride bikes on your trails, and so they were just doing what you told them to do. I mean, it's that type of mentality that brings a lawsuit. So I was just thinking, no biking.
Well, we would hope not to go there right away. I think if you ask the town attorney about the liability, we wouldn't want to hear what they have to say. And that would,
Well,
and then
we do have
can't.
the statutory liability, as we learned in detail when we talked about horseback riding and leases. My own point of view is, it seems like there are some people that are really responsible, that are willing to take care of the property, even work with us to take care of the property. I would not like to penalize them for a few people that are misbehaving.
Yes, so I think the recommendation by the bike group and Amy Patterson is to put up signs. It's closing, you state the environmental hazards, and mentions these are unauthorized trails, and you don't want to jeopardize access for everybody. And remove the
jumps and close the problem. Trails.
Yeah.
Jumping trails right now. There's so many shadow trails on this property. That's a huge project. I mean, we were hiking, looking for the trail, and we came across the group of 12 hikers, maybe more, maybe 15 hikers, using one of these shadow trails. And when we got out to Evergreen, all the parking around the turning circle and down the road were taken with these folks, so hikers are actually using some of these shadow trails, whether they got lost and they thought they were on a marked trail, I don't know.
I mean, that's an
point is
issue.
also
When you have a bike going down and eroding the trail and making it more prominent, and you're hiking and say, well, maybe the trail goes this way and that way.
So I have a question. Has anybody looked to see whether All Trails shows these trails? Like, is it appearing as a legitimate trail? Now, obviously not on our maps.
Not exactly, but there are trail maps apps that the bikers use that
That they could reuse, right?
That they use and reuse that can kind of identify the trails. But this fellow is going to be reaching out to some of the bikers. I know a handful of bikers, including Steve Morris, and I could give you a list. I'm not going to go through that. So it's a matter of communicating and doing a lot of outreach. But if any of you are interested in seeing the trails, let us know. And otherwise, Mike and I will.
Well, and we'll get a little group to go out and help us. Not only, we could do probably some of it at the same time, see what was going on, close off some of the trails, and the small jumps we can, with a shovel or two, easily close those off. And
would some of the responsible bikers be willing to help out with some of that work?
I think so.
Possibly. I don't think this is, maybe in the bigger picture, ultimately, maybe, if we close some of the shadow trails.
Right.
Did you talk to the guy at the bike shop?
Steve Morrissey. I haven't yet.
Okay, because he was very helpful several years ago when Evan and I were dismantling them.
Yep.
And
he works with the Land Trust.
Right, you're right, because, encourage good bikers, but no. I'm just curious, what type of, when you block off a trail, are you going to put like a chain or a rope?
I'm thinking, because you don't want to have something that's dangerous and you're going to hit them in the throat. But I'm thinking some, like a yellow nylon rope with a sign, trail resting.
Wondering if the sign people.
I don't know if we have those types of signs, but I was thinking of just...
No. I was just thinking if you, like, the police have yellow tape that says crime scene.
That would attract them.
If you could have, or maybe they exist, trail closed.
There may be, but if I were 14, that'd be the first thing I'd rip.
I think so too.
And I think what we would do is close these initial trails off and eliminate the jumps and see what happens. A couple of months. Let's just follow it, and if it kind of goes away, I think.
Do you think there's signs asking people to please stay on the trails? Am I being too optimistic for you?
I think trail resting.
This is boiling down to a few people who are
trail resting. Well, but these are shadow trails. These aren't our regular map trails.
And as we said, when we were looking, there were a dozen plus serious group of hikers.
Well, they thought that was a trail that,
We didn't ask them, but we think it's so used that they mistook it as a viable trail.
Let me interrupt you guys just for a second. We're getting kind of in the whole stretch, and I see folks mingling out there. So I think it would be great if you two continue working on this and come up with like
not a meeting till 7:30.
Well, we're
out by 7.
We're supposed to be out by 7. Though we've been running late.
So we will set up a meeting.
It would be great to
and those want to
look
come.
at, and also like a to-do list of what do we need to do and what order of priority, and if we need to buy signs or whatever to do that.
I guess the first line of business would be we'll throw out a couple of dates, and if you're available to walk, and then at the same time we will have some ropes. For ribbons just to close off the trail, get something on the kiosk.
And I'm thinking I print something and put plastic on both sides of the paper and get some punch holes in them.
Do you have any
Very simple.
trail closed signs anymore? I asked Peter Norris. He thought
I don't remember that sign, but it would be in the cabinet downstairs. So I don't have any of the...
Well, let's move on. So the next item on the list, I don't know if I mentioned is the Horseneck Creek Landing. I don't know if Fred or Mike have anything. We did talk about that briefly.
Yeah, I mean, I think, the big picture is that, not to get lost in the weeds here, we'd like to get a trail in this summer. That's the understanding. And so we have a preliminary trail marked out. I think the next thing is to get harbor management to come look at it with us.
Or they've been invited to take a look at it, but we can set up something with them.
Can you
too.
coordinate that with them, or do you want me to coordinate?
I suggested that I told them the color of the flagging and that it's down there and it's not very long. And
It'd be nice to walk it together.
Yeah, I'd love to have one of you guys or both of you guys go with them rather than send them out on their own.
We talked about it earlier. I mean, that's been the plan. So I'll reach out, Terry, and try to find a date, and whoever wants to come along.
Yeah.
And one thing we noticed when we marked this is that actually a lot of the marsh is already protected by existing brush. So
Catbrier.
We may not have to install that much fencing, so that, anyway, that's something we can discuss.
There's some natural fencing there.
Yeah. So,
and a lot's going to depend on, where DEEP approves the dock, because we're going to have more fencing, I would assume, channeling people to there, and we don't necessarily know where the turnaround exactly is going to be, because that's a function of where the...
yeah, so that's down the road. That's down the road. But, anyway, and then I'd just like to know, I've never helped install a trail with open space, so what do we actually need to do to make the trail once we agree where it's going to go?
Yeah.
So,
Flippers.
is that Stuart? Is that a work party?
Yeah, I think it's a work party, and we, decide on a width, whether, 4 feet.
And we have trail markers. So you could put a trail marker on a tree, and then you could create with GPS a little trail, so you could have a little map.
I mean, once it gets walked, it'll be pretty obvious where it is.
Yeah.
And it starts kind of in a parking area, the first parking area right near the boundary almost, and it's going to basically walk along the shore. And we would be trying to avoid any significant shrubs and stuff, but there's so much opportunity to have a 3 to 4 foot wide trail. It's not going to be a
and I
problem.
think you could, well, we're not supposed to use any mechanized. I was thinking of a brush cutter, but that's not going to work.
It's not that thick.
Yeah.
There might be
parts of the trail are already quite clear.
Yeah, there might be a dead tree, but if there's a dead tree, we could talk to Public Works. They've been down there cutting some of the trees, so between the two of us, we ought to be able to get enough pressure on the selectmen to get whoever's in charge of Public Works to get it done.
I haven't seen Public Works down there.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing I would mention in conjunction with the trail is we had talked about having like a viewing area in addition to perhaps the one to see the birds on the dock, so somebody can sit and chill out. And that's when you guys walk. I don't know that you mentioned it could be here, it could be there.
There are a couple spots where a bench would be very nice.
That's still very much up in the air, and maybe the two commissions could decide what would be an appropriate spot for that, and we could see about getting a bench.
Yeah.
And then, ultimately, I think we're going to cut some of the frag so it improves the view of the Horseneck Creek Marsh. And I don't see us spraying it or anything, but I just think annually we would go in the fall and cut it, and maybe cut it in this,
It doesn't sound like anybody who walked the trail last week has any major changes that they recommend to what we...
I did find someone for a fence, if you're interested. I did find someone, so if you want to touch base with me.
It has a very natural flow right along the bank, giving the most visibility to the marsh.
I think in the beginning, the first part of it, and then back flags is towards the edge that we had, and I think it veered left a little bit and then went back.
It kind of goes in and out, and there's one point it goes inland a little ways, but it's because it's that outcropping of land which kind of blocks the view, so we didn't feel it was necessary to get too close to the edge at that point because you can't really see much. It was also with the idea of trying to make it a little interesting, a little more meandering.
Yeah, rather than just a straight edge.
Let's look it over. And so I'll send you an email in a day or two and figure out a date.
Well, I think it's also important ecologically to maintain the connection between the marshland and the upland, because it is a wildlife corridor, and the Blackhall River watershed itself is a wildlife corridor, and I think this is this could be a key part of it, and to maintain the connection between the salt marsh and the coastal forest, including the understory, which is very important. That's keep the trail modest and certainly usable, but don't overboard with clearing, especially the understory, which is mostly, from what I could see, going the trail is mostly native plants.
Well, we just have to clear out what is, on the trail.
Yeah.
And I think initially it's the trail, and then as we get more details on, where the turning circle is, then we have additional discussions about that.
Yeah.
So,
There'll be more clearing, obviously. Yeah.
May I ask one more question?
Yeah, sure.
Is there going to be more dirt brought down by truck, Amanda, through the town property?
I'm not aware that it was. I've been using other apps. So there is other traffic on that roadway.
No, it's tractors, and it was...
No, there were no tractors. No. No.
So there's tracks and pictures and people going down there and saw them leaving, and Mr. Anton doing that?
No.
So how does the dirt get there from your property?
I think what I do on my property is my business.
What I'm asking is there more truckloads of dirt going down the access road the way you got there? There's no way that it could have gotten there any other way because the tracks lead to that spot. I'm just asking, is there more truckloads of...
That's your speculation, and I'm not going to answer those questions.
are there erosion control? I haven't seen the site yet, but are there erosion controls up so that none of the material erodes onto the town property?
There's nothing affecting the town property.
So there are no erosion controls.
There's nothing on the town property.
How high are what happens when it rains? How high are the berms? I haven't seen it, so.
Not very tall.
Well, how tall
3.
is that?
Maybe 3 feet.
Okay, so 3 feet high, and what's the slope?
I suggest if you're interested, you come down and look at it. I'm not a soil scientist. I'm not a mathematician. So if you're interested, you could come. But they've taken enough pictures. I'm sure they can share it.
My recommendation would be, if you're building a berm, depending on the height, that the slope at the minimum be 1-on-2. So if it's 3 feet high, the base has to be 12 feet wide. That's going to be difficult to stabilize with grass. So until there's grass and stuff on it, you need some sort of erosion control so that sediment doesn't, until grass grows.
Well, just generally speaking, if somebody's going to be taking a private vehicle down there to dump things, I think the Open Space Commission should know about it first. And approve it.
Let's, again, we're kind of veering off.
Well, the other thing...
I would say 2 things. Number one, in terms of erosion control and all that, that's kind of out of our purview. It's more wetlands or whatever.
No, it's not if it's impacting town's land that we have joint jurisdiction over. The other question is, there are wetlands nearby. If you're within 100 feet of a wetland, you need permission from the Inland Wetland Agency. If you're within...
inland wetlands.
Yeah. I just would rather not get into a back and forth.
Well,
where nobody has, I'm not familiar with what's going on there.
This I can't say for sure. It's not a back and forth, okay? If it's within 100 feet of the coastal jurisdiction line, the fill, it probably needs review and approval by the planning department, or at least whoever the planning official, Eric, is. And that extends actually 1,000 feet in. You need coastal area review. Now, I don't know if they have a local fill ordinance. In Greenwich, if you're bringing in fill, there's actually a local fill ordinance once you're over a certain amount of fill, that needs a permit. I suspect that's not happening here, but those types of things need to be addressed.
Well, again, I'm concerned about trying to get through our agenda and not to cut you guys off. And the other issue I would just mention too, and something perhaps we need to have discussion on is there any type of posted prohibition against use of that alleyway? And if there isn't, and there's issues, should we put something up saying no vehicles down there? So.
Well, I think our discussion and our proposal that we proposed to the selectmen, we all signed off on it, was, especially because your concern where cars were going down there, Amanda, and you took pictures of them as well, that you didn't want cars going all the way to the end. We talked about putting a split rail halfway down to where the hook would be to the left if you were going to the dock, to eliminate vehicles driving down that road, and it was supposed to be a walking path. We've also discussed about taking the path away from the outside, so it's in her house, and making that the walking path to be, good neighbors away from the property.
To be honest with you, Terry, I have to confess that I am not clear in my mind exactly how the turnaround getting to the dock would go, whether it would connect and use part of that roadway or not. So I'm having a hard time visualizing how this is
Just
going to go.
halfway down, hooking left to where the dock would be proposed. Now, we don't know yet because we have to have DEP. They're going to tell us where it can go. But I'm just going to tell you that the truck traffic and the tractor track with the fresh pile of new berm that is there was over top of the town property. And this is exactly what the concerns that Amanda brought to everyone's attention about having vehicles go down that road. And so I think we all have to play by the rules that we have been setting and have this discussion and making sure that we're all doing our part.
So my suggestion would be, we talked about having kind of an ad hoc little groups to deal with issues as they come up. Clearly, this is an issue that's come up, and maybe Fred and Mike could work with a couple people, and we could come up with whatever we think is appropriate, sign, fence, whatever, and just address this.
Yeah, and I think from the very beginning, we said it's probably a good idea to eliminate vehicles.
Well, I think we should make it known that the Open Space Commission should know if anybody's intending or wants to traverse that property for any reason with a vehicle. We should know that ahead of time. And that would clarify a lot of this stuff, what's going on. So my request is that anybody who wants to do that needs to first talk to us, and then we'll sort it out, what's permissible, what's not.
Yeah, and again, I would say that despite what may have been in the recommendation, and it probably did address it, when you look at that, there's nothing there. If I came there for the first time and saw that roadway, there would be nothing telling me that, hey, I shouldn't go down that roadway.
That's why we are saying.
Sure. Yeah, that's why I'm suggesting we need to look at it and deal with it. Yeah.
Fair enough. Make sure that we're doing the things to take care of the property.
So I would ask again that Fred and Mike could reach out to you guys, and we could come up with a small little working group and deal with that.
I agree.
Well, let's address that when we look at the trail
and
in a week or so.
get right on signs, so I can get on that and make sure the signs go up as soon as possible. The weather's going to break, the kids are going to get out of school, people are going to be curious. So I think we just got to get on it a little faster than we are.
It would be helpful if there wasn't further activity like that until we're able to talk about it. That's my request.
Well, moving on, we have a couple more agenda items. As far as Champlain North goes, we talked about putting a kind of a fence around the Barbizon Oak to basically protect visitors from potentially falling limbs or whatever. And Amanda just gave me a couple of quotes I haven't really had a chance to digest. And I was just going to say that yeah. Andrea's doing a great job with the signs. We finally, after a number of false starts, have the Barbers on Oak sign in production.
Yes, it's actually shipping to my house tomorrow.
Is it really?
Arriving tomorrow.
How cool. So,
Hello.
What?
You got an answer for Micah.
Formica?
so moving right along with that, kind of bang, bang. The other thing is I went to the Board of Selectmen meeting,
I'm going the right way?
Yeah.
at which Michael Fogliano said that he is in pretty serious negotiations with Habitat for Humanity to have 2 houses built on the McCulloch building envelopes. He has a grant that he specifically asked the selectmen to formally extend to help them with that. And he fully expects to return the $100,000 to our acquisition fund by the 5-year time frame that Amanda and Dave McCulloch and Bonnie negotiated. So that'll be a plus too. Good. And I would like to give Andrea an opportunity to talk about community outreach.
Great. I have like 4 agenda items that I'll go through. Signs have been covered. There's a volunteer appreciation breakfast at the central office from the school. It's offering Thursday, May 18th at 8 in the morning. So as an open space.
Didn't that already happen?
This is not the volunteer. This is the school is doing a thank you to volunteers, anyone who has helped and worked with the school.
Okay.
So as an open space commission, we work with the schools through the high school's environmental club, and I was going to go May 18th at 8 in the morning to central office just to get and I think just from a publicity and outreach that if anyone wants to join, please do and let me know. So we are being recognized rather than...
What's the day?
Thursday, May 18th at 8 in the morning. Coffee will be served.
At high school?
At the central office, so it's at the center school.
Oh, at center school.
Center school. And you go in and you'll be obvious, it'll be to the right. And we, as an open space commission, held a appreciation to Heather Freed, the science teacher and environmental club leader, and to the 11 graduating seniors, 9 of whom were present. And I had, with Mike and Fred and Greg, we gave out certificates, T-shirts, and a $100 gift certificate to Heather Freed for her work. And so if anyone wants to contribute $8 towards it, that would be great. If not, I'll assume the rest. Greg was very generous also in contributing to that.
I think Fred gave me the $8. So I will pass that down to you.
Okay. Thank you. And to the point of the future working with the environmental club, it may be more the community service club with interests that will include that of the environmental club. There will be some change in leadership and responsibilities that I'm not quite at liberty to say, but I think there will still be opportunity to work with this high school. And I'll be working on
multitasking.
I will be working on continuing that collaboration. All right, so that would be my quick wrap because we went through the bike.
So I just passed around a piece of paper. When we spoke before the Board of Selectmen about Ferry Landing, I had mentioned that we were going to do our best to look for appropriate grants, and that kind of has stuck apparently Martha Shoemaker's mind that I'm the grant person now, so any grant program that comes along, she sends me some info on, so she just sent me that a couple days ago. I'm not sure it is all appropriate, but I just wanted to share it with all of you. If anybody has any ideas on it, we can look into it further. We're about to go into executive session, but I would make a brief exception. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the site walk on Buttonball, Denise? Or?
I can if you would like me to.
Sure.
So it was pretty short and sweet. Didn't last very long. There's only a small bit of wetlands on the property. There's a vernal pool at the end of it. Basically, there was probably a small drainage way that when they built the road, they didn't put a culvert. So now that, so however long ago the road was built, there was now a vernal pool. Maybe there was a stone wall there first, and that may have been the first blockage that started backing up the water. But it could have been, this is a question, so it could have been a vernal pool historically, but definitely jamming up helped it. I suggested to Eric that they have an existing conditions map because there's a big roadway that was put in supposedly by the water utility to test for some wells. So, and I don't know if they have a permit for that or not, but, it's interesting because there was no mention by the wetland agency that, but, I don't know, maybe they didn't get a permit. But one of those weird things was, you've got a roadway in here, and it's within, so many feet of the wetlands. So anyway, but otherwise, the area is pretty. It's not overly steep. There are some little steeper slopes on it, but it's pretty. It's a typical woodland, but not as steep as I thought it was going to be. Has a kind of a flat top actually, so kind of an interesting parcel. So there wasn't much to say about it. It's a wooded area, but there's a lot of disturbance in there. So I'm not, because they didn't have the existing conditions on the maps that we were giving, we weren't exactly sure where you were. And we stayed pretty close around the wetland and where that is. So we didn't obviously want the whole site because the Wetlands Commission, they were only interested in the wetlands. So it'll be interesting, how they handle that. And they're looking at putting the stormwater management area in open space. But that should be downstream of the wetlands. So I'm not sure how they're going to direct.
Denise, was there any discussion about how to handle the vernal pool?
They didn't because they were just doing, as you do with site walks, you have a discussion on, how this should be handled, with one exception, and that is they, are letting the folks know that their regulations, I think, require not 100-foot buffer, but 100-foot buffer from the vernal pool.
Right.
So they, are going to be requiring that.
Whose regulations are those?
In the Wetlands Commission. So, but otherwise, it was pretty straightforward. A couple of things I would look at is like, the restoration of the roadway, the roadway that was put in, which is huge, is not necessarily where the roadway is going to be. So now you're going to have another roadway, and then the building lots, you already have this big disturbance. That's going to impact drainage, because they've got a road that has heavy equipment going over.
Yeah.
So now they're going to be looking at, on-site septic, on-site wells, and they're going to be trying to do as much as they can with stormwater retention, on-site stormwater retention, and that's going to be a problem with the compacted soil for that roadway over here. So,
Yeah,
those are some of the things that Scott, we can't overcome.
Denise, is this roadway in the open space?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, oh, roadway.
That was, that
Yeah.
was,
The roadway goes right to start what corner?
So it's next to the vernal pool then?
that was brought in when they brought in the well drilling equipment,
Down.
drilling equipment. And then I just want to mention,
They said it was because the water utility did it, and they were.
right, but they had to,
Yeah.
for the well, so they had to bring in all that heavy equipment, so they brought that in. And I just want to mention to the subdivision next to it, is they're blasting now, there's so much ledge, so I don't know how much ledge is
Yeah, I
over
mean,
there.
I-
But
I-
they're blasting day in, day out.
I mean, I didn't see a lot of outcropping. I have to look at, I didn't have a geology, I have to look at depth to bedrock. It's not, the soils there are not overly restricted as there are some other areas, so.
I'm gonna have to leave.
I think I have a topo map of that.
Give us 5 minutes.
Yeah, but
Really?
not more than that.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so Evan's got to leave
I
quite
have to
soon.
leave.
And if you can give us 5 minutes, I would like to,
Please.
can you please give us 5 minutes?
Yes.
So to go into executive session, and it'll be quite brief. Yep.
Goodbye.
And,
Thank you,
Mayor,
Suzanne.
you guys, go recording now?
Wait, motion to go into executive
Yes,
session.
and
Second,
At what time?
7:01.